Hi everybody, Karl Diffenderfer here with Higher Impact Business and Life Coaching, and Randy Miller is here with us today too. We're just finishing up our Frederick Roundtable and had a great morning talking about many different good topics, but we wanted to spend some time talking with you about selling failures, and really some of the top three that I might say would be in the top tier of selling failures. Now, we're not talking about not getting the sale. I guess that could be a selling failure. We're not talking about asking a woman how many months pregnant she is when she's not pregnant. Not that type of failure, but more so how we can govern ourselves as selling professionals and what we might be missing out on with some of the things that we do. So Randy, why don't you head us off here?
Well, and it's not our intention to today, certainly, to try to cover all of them, but we're taking a look at really something that's really prompted out of a situation that I faced recently as I was in a coaching relationship with a client. And internally, this person was having difficulty seeing themselves in a selling relationship. They didn't want to be a salesperson. They really had this internal resistance about that. And the reason, after asking a few questions in the session, it was determined that internally they felt that selling meant manipulating the client or the person that they were trying to present to. And so we had conversation about it. It's not about manipulation. Now, you and I both know there are sales trainers and training systems that's all about nodding your head yes, and things that people are told to do in the sales profession that really are about manipulating their client. But we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the process, but really what this person was looking to be was a trusted advisor. But there were some things that were getting in the way, and I want to just kind of throw this at you, Karl, so that you can respond to this. But one of the things that they kept saying was, they were saying it to me, that in their process of presentation, they started out with the phrase, "I'm not selling." So what do you think the client, or the hopeful client, what do you think they're thinking when, if I say to you, "I'm not selling," what are you thinking?
Well, immediately, I don't trust the person, right? Because I'm saying something to you like I'm not selling. Think about it for yourself. If somebody says it to you, do you immediately think that they're selling something? I do. It's actually it's a negative, or a false negative, or whatever you want to call it. It causes your mind to go the opposite direction. And so when we're selling, it's probably best for us not to say that. Now, I will tell you, recently I was at a conference and they said to us, we are not going to try to sell you a single thing through this conference. And I was like, huh. Now they spun it the opposite direction, and they honestly didn't try to sell me anything during the conference. So in that regard, they actually did something really good, because they automatically brought trust into the conversation by saying that and then not doing that. But you and I both know if we're sitting down to sell something to somebody, we can't tell them we're not selling something.
And even if we go online and, if I ask you to put your email in to access information, you immediately know that I may not be selling something in the moment, but I'm selling something later, or I'm going to at least give you the opportunity to make a purchase. And I'm probably going to come at you 8, 10, 12, 15 times with an email upon email upon email. So for me to say I'm not selling, it really sets me to say this person they're not really a person of integrity. It causes me to question them from the very beginning of the conversation.
Well, and let's be real with each other. I mean, all of us have to make a living, right? So at the end of the day, we're selling something. If we're truly like an entrepreneur or a business owner or something like that, we do have the need to sell. But if we start off saying that, we're really setting ourselves up for failure. And so then the next phrase that you might want to look at, and I just said it very differently. I don't know if you picked up the nuance here a moment ago. I said, let's be real. The next phrase is, let's be honest. Let me be honest. If somebody says to you, let me be honest with you, aren't they almost saying that they could be lying to you in the process? I don't know.
Or up until now, I haven't been honest with you, but now, starting from here, the last 20 the last 20 minutes that we've been talking, I've been a little shady.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to start being honest. And again, it makes me the buyer or potential buyer. It makes me think, does this person have integrity? So am I supposed to now start trusting them? I don't know. And the fact is that you may have a great product, you may have a great service, but now as the customer, a potential customer at least, I'm thinking about things that you really don't want me thinking about.
Right.
You want me thinking about the value, and you want me to trust you. So there are certain things that we do that set people thinking in directions that we don't want them to think. Not because we're trying to get them to think another way, but at least simply we don't want them thinking about one thing when we want them thinking about something else. And trust.
So when I say let's be real, is that different? Do you think that's okay then?
Let's be real it feels different to me than let me be honest. I think honest is the trigger word.
Yeah.
But I might say, have you been real with me up until now? Are you faking something?
Yeah.
You know, so you don't want me thinking that, because again, I'm now thinking about something else, and you've been presenting to me, you want me to think in certain ways. So,
Yeah.
Which is beneficial for me as the customer because you need me to understand.
Right, and then to that point, I think one of the things, so I'm not selling anything, or let me be honest, both of those phrases have trust at the underlying core. And so we need to be really, really careful that we're promoting trust in our words and also our body language too, for that matter. So we have these phrases that we say that are unintended communication. And then, I mean, let's talk about body language for a second.
So I love what you just did.
What?
While he was saying that to you, he had his palm up as he was doing this rather than doing this. Now that seems simple, but those who know and understand body language know that this means, please be quiet, I have something to say. Or if I said it even stronger, it might be, shut up, let me talk. So what you just did is you were communicating openness. And that changed for me because I can do that. I can use body language like this. To make the change simply from here to here, oh man, what a struggle. So these often, those phrases that we use, they're trigger moments in our own, coming from within us, and that body language is coming from within us. And if we don't see ourselves, I think this is why dancers and maybe lifters and so forth, they use mirrors around, and often we don't see ourselves communicating, so therefore it's harder for us to perceive what we're doing that may be setting the stage for the customer to be thinking differently or just feel different about us and not trust us. So just a thing like this, or if you, like he's doing right now, he's closing his arms like this.
I'm doing it on purpose.
Now watch, the difference between that and this, subtle difference. But this may communicate, I'm interested, or I'm open, I'm listening, whereas this tends to communicate closure. I'm not listening, I'm just waiting for you to be quiet.
Or I'm cold.
Or you're cold.
I could be cold. But when
I
somebody's
mean, literally room temperature cold.
So when you lean in, though, do you feel the difference right now? It's more, I'm engaged in the conversation with you.
Absolutely. So, yeah, there are a lot of nuances like that. Things that sometimes if you're sitting at a table, you don't even realize how you've got your feet positioned affects your upper body. So it's little nuances that you have to become really self-aware of those things, and it's harder to do when you're not doing this in front of a mirror, so you're not really seeing yourself. It's helpful if you video yourself doing those things, having a conversation with others. We can look back at this and we could say, maybe we should have done this differently, or the next time we do a video, we might want to position ourselves and use our body differently. But the reality is that in the sales environment, sometimes we're in front of the customer, we're not realizing what we're doing and how we're projecting, what we're projecting as far as emotions are concerned.
Yeah, I think of like with my kids, sometimes their body language is said through their face, and I forget what the percentage is, but a lot of what we say comes through our facial expression. So I'm going to say a phrase to you, the same phrase, the same tonality, but I want you to watch my face and see if you can see the difference between the two. I'm not angry. Or, I'm not angry. I changed my tone there, but you got the gist of it. If I say I'm not angry and my brow is furrowed and I'm very intense with my face, whereas I'm not angry, and even there it's hard to say without it the same tone, but or with the same tone. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like our tonality has a lot to do with what we do in selling, and so we need to watch what we're doing. And then on top of that, we need to watch what they're doing.
Yeah, it's about 38% actually. There's about 38% that comes across through the tone of voice that we use. That's why a phone call is better, because you can communicate tone in a phone call versus a text or email. And often those two, because the person who's reading the email or text adds tonality to the email or text. Now I realize a lot of our communication today is done through text and email. I do a lot of that as well. But there are times when a phone call or face-to-face, Zoom, Skype, whatever system you might use, is much, much better for relationship purposes and to communicate integrity than trying to, or let's say, be dependent upon the person who's reading it at that moment, because they're going to add to it their tone. And if 38% of our communication is tone, only 7% approximately is actually our vocabulary, the words we use, and it's around 55 or so percent that's body language. So a lot of what we're communicating, if we're in a digital environment, a tone or a text or email, that's so, because it leaves out all of that.
And that's why if you're having a frustrating conversation with somebody, pause, take a moment to gain your composure, remain that leader in the room, but then call them. Go meet with them in person. Don't email them, don't text them. Those are probably the worst things you can do if you're sensing frustration in the conversation.
And we realize that what we're saying right now is really basic. We understand that. But I was talking with someone who's been in the business environment, if you will, and I see business people regularly who have forgotten some of these things. They've forgotten to pay attention to some of these things. And I find myself doing it, back to that simplicity of saying the difference between saying, yes, I know, and I may be nodding my head, but my hand's down, I'm still communicating, be quiet, listen. I have to change, and I've heard it takes 45 to 65 repetitions just to begin to change a habit. 100 to 150 repetitions. Now think about that. That's a lot of repetitions to change a habit, and then get to the point where you can nuance that habit for your purposes so that you can better communicate.
And so then with that too, like as we're talking about body language here, the reason you want to know your own body language and also watch their body language is if you can mirror their body language, you can better connect with them. So if they are sitting forward, you can sit forward too. If they have their arms crossed, you can also do that. I don't know if I'd recommend it because you want to create that openness, but when you connect with somebody and you mirror what actions they have, maybe other body language factors, then they actually will feel more connected to you, and that will help you with the sale. And they may not even be aware of the fact that they see you doing that. I have found that one of the things that I'll do sometimes is, I'll scratch my forehead or something like that, and lo and behold, 30 seconds later, that person's doing that as well. And it's like, wait a minute, but they don't even realize that they're matching and mirroring what I'm doing too.
So I had a moment, I was sitting at a local Panera across the table from a coaching client, and they had a file open that they were presenting some information to me to show me kind of where they were in business and process and so forth. And they were asking me some questions. And so as they had their file open, the conversation began to evolve, and at one point they closed their file, and I just paused and I said, so have we turned a corner? Where are you right now? And they stopped, they looked at me like, why would you ask me that? And I said, you just closed your file. And that said to me that either A, you're done, or you're moving on to you're ready to move on in the
Transitioning.
conversation. You're transitioning.
Yes.
And they were like, wow, they did not realize that they had closed the file. And then what's interesting is they reopened the file and they asked me a great question following that. And that really evolved into a great conversation and great coaching. But it's those nuances, and I know, again, many of you are watching this. This is like so simple, and I'm putting him to sleep right now. So anyway, those are the simple things that sometimes we miss.
No, I was doing it to see if you on camera felt the need to yawn, because yawns are contagious, right?
Oh yeah,
There's another body language.
why would you do that? Yeah, okay.
We're putting you to
Causing
sleep, right?
them to yawn. That's, yeah, exactly.
That's not fair.
No, it's not. So I know we've spent some time now on I'm not selling and the internal thing about manipulating others. Actually, I just thought about this. I wanted to ask you a moment ago when you were talking about mirroring. Some people might think of that as manipulation. So why would you want to mirror a client or potential client's
It's a
body language?
great question. So to me, if I desire connection and relationship with the person that I'm selling to, then I've already had the opportunity of getting to know that person. It's not about the sale, it's about the connection. And so if the attitude of my heart going into it is, how can I provide value to this person? How can I make a difference in their life? Whether I can sell something to them or not, then my body language matching and mirroring them has a good intent. If I go in there and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna get the sale, that's not good. I'm automatically coming in trying to manipulate and gain for myself. And as a salesperson, we always have to do what's right and what's best for the customer as well as ourselves. It's not just about us.
Yeah. Now, I also think that attitude has to do much more with the immediate sale rather than the long-term relationship. Because out of connection and long-term relationship, it's not just about that particular sale and that particular connection. It's about building, as we said earlier, building a relationship so that I'm trusted as the trusted advisor,
Right.
so that I'll refer to others because I trust you. I'll trust you with my family, my friends, my other business relationships. It goes way beyond that immediate sale. And if I'm focused on the immediate sale, it's going to come through, and
Right.
it's going to be communicated in language, body language, et cetera.
Yep. So our final third failure is a salesperson that tries to sell features and benefits. Now, hear me out here. It's okay to sell features and benefits, but it is so much more important to understand the need and what you can do to make a difference in that other person's life, and so, or in their business, or whatever it is you're selling. And so a lot of people try to say, oh, you need it because of this and this and this, and they're all over the place, and they're really speaking to the person as opposed to listening to them. And so my take is, I'm going to disqualify you as a customer before I qualify you. Now, that does not meant to sound mean or anything like that, but I want to know that it makes sense for us to work together. And so I'm going to approach it from the angle of saying, okay, well, I'm going to assume that we're not a good fit until we figure out that we are a good fit. And so what are your thoughts on that?
So how do you go about that? So let's say you're sitting down with someone and you're trying to determine whether this is a good fit, and you're not presenting features and benefits.
Mhm.
So though you have features and there are certain benefits to the relationship, how would you go about starting that conversation to become the trusted advisor?
Yeah, great question. And ultimately,
It's what I do as a coach.
Yeah, that's good. He's been trained well. Cha-ching. All right, so really, it's about the questions that we ask. Our listening in our ears. Remember, you have one of these and two of these, but it's the listening that we do and the questions that we ask. If we ask really good questions, we're going to get to the bottom of what that person needs and why they're even sitting down with us. So if I were to say to them, you think that you need, let's say I'm meeting with I'm a salesman for windows and doors, and I say to them, I think you need these windows and doors. Don't you agree with me? That's not really good. because that's not a good question, right? But if I say to them, well, you wanted to sit down and meet to talk about new windows and doors, well, tell me more about that. Different question.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're approaching it only from features and benefits side, then it changes the way the person perceives you.
Right.
And you're trying to influence in a positive way for positive purposes for the client, for
Correct.
them.
Correct.
So, let's say in my background, I was doing some training in the automobile trucking business. So, if a person comes in, it's a rainy day, and anyone out there that's selling trucks knows that the truck buyer comes in on the rainiest day because they can't be in the field.
Right.
So they come in on a rainy day, and you're like, oh no, now it's raining, and now I've got to tromp out there in the mud or the water, at least on the lot. And so the question might be, if you're from the north or from this area, particularly in Maryland, might be they're looking for a truck that they can put a plow on the front of it so that in the winter they can plow. In the summer they're going to be a roofer, but in the winter they're going to be plowing. So there are things like that that are features and benefits that I need to know in order to give them direction toward the right vehicle for their purposes.
Right.
So features and benefits is certainly a part of this, but if they don't trust me
Right.
as the trusted advisor, then I've already lost the sale from the very beginning, and I don't get their referral because they're not going to trust me to send their other partners or other people that they know in the same business.
Well, and also with that, so I first say you got to build trust. Relationship is important first. Then understanding their needs is really important next. Now, that might include features and benefits, but that need is not, they don't need a plow for the front of their truck. They want to generate revenue during the winter for their business so that they can continue to feed their family. That right there is their real need. So if you know that and you speak to that, it's not about getting a plow in the front of the truck. It's about the revenue he wants to generate in his off season. If you know that, then you can speak to that, and you're going to get a much better connection out of that person.
Yeah, that's where the connection is. That's where the trusted advisor relationship comes in, definitely. So I know some, and we're coming to the close here of the video, but I know some of the clients that you have are real estate clients. So when you're coaching a real estate client, they have a variety of product, if you will, because every home, every piece of property is different. So
Right.
how do you in that relationship create a trusted advisor relationship with because you have a coaching relationship with a real estate agent. You're not trying to teach them how to sell real estate necessarily, but you may be assisting them in the way they think about that in working with their clients.
Well, at the core of that, all of us buy something for a reason. There's not a reason that we buy something unless it's whimsical, and we do that too sometimes. But there's even then still a reason below that. And so a lot of times I spend time helping them think like their customer. Ultimately, that's what you want to do. You want to think like your customer and not just, oh, I want to buy a new plow, or I want to buy a new house or whatever. Why? Ask yourself the question, why do I want to buy a new house? Maybe the family's expanding and they're going to have another child. Maybe they need to downsize. Whatever the reason, there's a reason. And so you almost got to think like a marketer and say, okay, what are the triggers? What are the reasons? What are the causes why somebody is going to need this? And then speak to that.
So recently, in the last year, my 86-year-old father-in-law moved in with us. But before that, we had to find a property that we could put a stair lift in, and not every property. That meant we had to move first, but the stair lift had to be able to be installed within the property.
Right.
And that was a need that we communicated, and we must have looked at 20 properties in order to have the right situation for that need.
Right.
So coaching a real estate salesperson says, just like in real estate, it's location.
Yep.
In this particular case, it was not only about location, but it was about, can the property, the home, accommodate someone because we could not find one that was a Rambler style home in our area that would accommodate the location we needed to be in. So we needed to get a townhome.
Okay.
And so the real estate agent had to understand our very specific needs.
Right.
And so those kind of are the feature and benefits, but we had to, they built trust, so we knew that they knew what
Right.
we needed.
Right.
So, you know, just like in real estate though, it's location, location, location. I think for us and those of us who are becoming the trusted advisor or being a trusted advisor, it's listen, listen, listen.
Yeah, I agree.
And that really starts with great questions.
And ultimately, people love to talk about themselves, as we're kind of doing right now. But you guys are a captive audience, and you have no choice but to listen. But in the real world, like, people love to talk about themselves. I've been in sales meetings where a person has dumped their whole life story, and at the end, they're like, "Man, I just feel like I know you so much better from this conversation, and I didn't share a single thing about myself." Think about it. People love to talk about themselves. So I'd say if you do anything as a salesperson, listen, listen, listen. Learn how to listen. Learn how to shut up. Learn how to ask good questions. And from that, you will be amazed at the stories that open up and the people that you get to meet. And remember, it's about relationship. It's not about the sale. The sales will come. Build the relationships and be amazed at the amazing people that you get to meet through
Absolutely.
the process.
Yeah.
Be grateful for that. And just watch the sales come. They will come. I guarantee it. Build relationships and listen. That's what I have to say.
This has been great. No,
Yeah.
I really believe this has been great. Hopefully you've been able to pick up on a couple of points through the process, maybe more, hopefully more. And we've enjoyed really spending some time with you. Thank you so much for giving your attention today.
Over and out. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.